Welcome to Sleep Time, where I read short stories that hopefully calm your mind a little bit. Chapter 11, My Everyday and Night. It's 21 minutes past 3 now, and I'm back in the hallway, making some final adjustments to my Wellington boots. They're actually the doc's boots. He left them at our house once, I don't know why, and they've been here ever since. They're far too big for me, which is why I've had to customize them by stuffing the toe ends with scrunched up newspaper. I used to have my own pair of Wellingtons, but it's been so many years since I wore them, so many years since I've needed them, that I don't have a clue where they are. In fact, it's quite possible that Mom got rid of them a long time ago. And even if she didn't, and I did know where they were, they'd be at least a couple sizes too small for me by now. I don't feel very comfortable in Doc's Wellingtons, but they're the only boots I could find, so I don't really have much choice. The gloves and the coat and the hat I'm wearing aren't mine either. They're Mom's. As with the boots, I used to have my own coat and everything, but if you barely ever leave the house, and I barely ever leave my room, let alone the house, there's not much point of having outdoor clothing. And besides, I can always borrow Mom's if I need to. She's only a bit bigger than me, so they're not too bad a fit. Although, having said that, "What are you doing now?" LMA says. "These gloves are a bit loose. I'm just going to try patting them out a bit with a few scraps of waddled up newspaper. It won't take long." "That's enough, Elliot." "What?" "We have to go. You can't keep putting it off." "I'm not." "Yes, you are. You know you are." She's right, of course. I keep trying to convince myself that I'm ready to do this, that I've got my fear under control. But the truth is, I'm as terrified now as I was 21 minutes ago. All I want to do is go back to the sanctuary of my room and stay there forever. It's the only place I feel safe, the only place that I ever want to be. My room, my everything, my world. The countryside can be a scary place when darkness falls. Before I had my own specific modified fear-proof room, I'd often lie awake at night just waiting for the horror sounds to begin. The piercing screech of an owl, the screams of a fox, like someone in terrible pain, the pitiful cries of rabbits being killed, and monocum noises too, gunshots from night hunters, the shattering roar of a speeding car or motorcycle, drunk monkums passing by, shouting and laughing. And on top of all that, there's the constant sound of army maneuvers up on the moors, the distant popping of gunfire, the rumble of the tanks, soldiers' war cries, the whiz-bang of flares going off. And even when the night is silent, it's a silence of darkness and dread, a silence that's always waiting for the next unholy scream. But I don't hear anything of the night anymore. My fear-proof room is 100% soundproof. I don't know exactly how it works, but basically the walls and ceiling are made up of several layers of various kinds of stuff that either absorbs or reflects sound, and the only window is quadruple glazed. The window looks out over the fields at the back of the house, but I very rarely actually see them because there's a blackout blind that totally obscures the view. I can raise the blind if I want to, and occasionally I find the courage to have a quick look, but most of the time it stays down, shielding me from the outside world. The room's painted white all over. I chose white because for me it's the color that comes closest to nothing. It's the most non-scary color, the color that doesn't fill my head or my heart with anything. I can lie on my bed staring up at the ceiling, sometimes for hours on end, and I don't have to worry about the sky of whiteness invading my thoughts and feelings. It leaves me alone. It leaves us alone. Me and LMA. Solitude becomes us. My room has everything I need. I've got my own bathroom, shower, sink, toilet, but no bath. Baths are too scary. You can drown in a bath. I've got a kettle and cups and stuff, so I can make myself a hot drink whenever I want. Tea or hot chocolate. Only coffee makes me twitch and shake like crazy. I've got a little fridge, cold drinks, milk, yogurt, butter, and a little kitchen area with plates and cutlery and a bread box, so I can have a sandwich or something whenever I feel like it. I've got a bed, of course, and all my own furniture. Settee, armchair, desk. I've got a laptop, a 24-inch flat-screen TV, a landline phone, and a cell phone. The landline is set up so it only receives incoming calls from Mom. And instead of ringing, a green light flashes on and off when she calls, and the cell phone is for emergencies only. I've got all the clothes I need here, which isn't a lot, and I've got all my school stuffs too. Pens, notebooks, textbooks. Mom tried her best to get me into the local school, but after 2 disastrous attempts, both of which traumatized me for weeks, she accepted that normal schooling was out of the question for me, and since then, she's taught me herself at home. Most important of all, I've got all my non-school books in here too. The books I just like reading. 2 walls of my room are completely taken up with bookshelves, and the shelves are packed solid with hundreds of books. I don't know exactly how many I've got, but the last time I counted them, just over a year ago, the total was 1,762. So that's it, basically. That's my world, my sanctuary, my everyday and nights. Chapter 12, The Mother. Jenner glanced at his watch again. It was 12:28. They were packed across the road from the house, and so far, things hadn't been going quite as Jenner had planned. For a start, he hadn't given any consideration to the possibility that the mother might not be at home. So when they'd arrive at the house 20 minutes ago and seen that her car wasn't there, it had completely thrown Jenner off balance. And for another thing, once he'd decided that the only thing to do was wait and hope the mother came back soon, he'd begun to realize that maybe their Santa Claus outfits weren't such a good idea after all. As disguises, plain and simple, they were excellent. No one who saw them in their Santa gear could possibly give meaningful description of them. Unfortunately, no one who saw 2 cheap and nasty Santas sitting in the parked Land Rover would ever forget them either, especially if they tried making conversation with them, which several curious pass-byers had already done. But there was no point in worrying about it, Jenner told himself. It was what it was, and there was nothing they could do about it. And besides, about bloody time, he said as a silver gray Volvo pulled into the driveway. Is that her? Dad gasped. Of course it's her. Who else is it gonna be? I don't know, do I? Jenner watched as the mother got out of the car and scurried over to the front door, digging into her handbag as she went, looking, no doubt, for the key. She's left it running, Dak said. What? The car. She's left it running. Chapter 13, Meloxicine. My fear pills are a drug called meloxicine. It's not a commonly prescribed medication, and I only ended up taking it after the doc had tried me on just about every other anti-anxiety drug he could think of. None of the others had been right for me. Some of them hadn't worked at all, and others had helped me a little bit, but not enough to outweigh their sometimes quite drastic side effects. Hallucinations, mania, aggression, extreme fatigue, hyperactivity, acute diarrhea, vomiting, panic attacks, severe depression, suicidal thoughts. As I said to the doc once, I'd rather be terrified all the time for the rest of my life than wake up every morning wanting to kill myself. My fear pills don't stop me being scared. I still live in constant fear, and my life is still ruled by that fear. But with meloxicine, well, it's hard to describe exactly what it does for me, but basically, it makes everything feel not quite so terrible. Of course, There's a massive difference between feeling not quite so terrible and feeling good or okay or not too bad. But the way I see it is that any relief, no matter how small it is a lot better than nothing. It's like offering a coat to a naked person caught outside on a rainy winter's day. The coat's not going to solve their problem. It's not going to stop them from being cold and wet, but they'd have to be pretty stupid not to wear it. The very worst of my fears, the things I dread more than anything else, is the fear of fear itself. It's a truly monstrous thing, like a howling demon whirling around inside me, an insatiable beast that keeps getting bigger and bigger all the time. Bigger, faster, stronger, hungrier. It feeds on itself, so the bigger it gets, the more it needs to eat, and the more it eats, the bigger it gets. And as if it isn't kept under control, it can end up dragging me, screaming, to the very edge of my sanity. Meloxicine helps to keep the beast at bay. I know it's still there. I can hear it sometimes, a distant, low growl. And every now and then, I can taste the foul odor of its demonic breath creeping into the back of my throat. But as long as I keep taking my fear pills, 6 a day in regular intervals, regardless of how I'm feeling, the beast doesn't get any closer. But if I'm late taking a pill, or I'm completely forget to take one, which usually only happens when I'm feeling so relatively good that I can't or don't want to have anything to do with not feeling good. When that happens, the beast comes back with a vengeance. It's as if it's there all the time, skulking around inside me, locked in a cage of meloxicine's making, just waiting for its chance to escape and come after me. And if the meloxicine begins to wear off for any reason, the lock on the cage begins to weaken. And the longer I go without the drug, the weaker the cage becomes. The lock cracks and crumbles, the door swings open. The insatiable beast is set free. Which is why it's so important that I never run out of pills. Because if I do, I have to face the beast. It's coming, Ella. It's getting closer. I can smell its breath. Me too. It stinks. It's only a smell, Elliot. It can't hurt you. Yeah, but the beast can hurt me. It's hungry. I need to put it back in its cage before it's too late. I need the last pill. Ella, I need to take it now. Silence. The silence of Ella Mae's thinking. Then, alright, take it. We'll just have to hope that we find Mom and Shirley sooner rather than later. And that they've got my prescription. Yeah. I take the pill bottle from my pocket, shake it, like this. Then I unscrew the cap and carefully tip the last remaining pill into the slightly cupped palm of my hand. Make sure you don't drop it, Ella says. Yeah, right. Like I hadn't already thought of that myself. She gives me an imaginary slap on the back of my head. Hey, I almost did drop it then. Sorry. I pop the pill in my mouth and swallow it dry. Bye-bye for now, Mr. Beastie. Bye-bye. Chapter 14. Let's get this done. She's left it running, Dak said. What? The car. She's left it running. He was right, Jenna realized. Clouds of blue-gray exhaust smoke were still chugging out into the icy cold air, and as Jenner wound down his window, he could hear the low rumble of the idling engine. He switched his attention to the mother, watching her as she opened the front door, shook the snow from her coat, and went inside. Jenner waited, staring hard at the still open door. She's left the door. I know. There was no mistaking the signs. Leaving the car running, leaving the front door open. She wasn't home for good. She was just stopping off for some reason. At any second now, she'd be coming back out and getting back into the car. Jenner looked at his watch. It was 12:31. "All right," he said, opening the car door. "Let's get this done." Chapter 15. The Snarl of the Beast. It happened like this. I have a renewable prescription for my fear pills, which basically means that instead of having to make an appointment with the doc every time I need more meloxicine, Mom or Shirley just hands in a duplicate prescription slip at the pharmacy in town. The pharmacy then sends it to the doc's office to be authorized. A doctor signs it, not necessarily the doc. Then it goes back to the pharmacy and they get it ready for collection. Each time it's picked up and I get a new prescription slip for another month's worth of meloxicine. And 3 weeks later, the process starts all over again. We have to allow 2 working days to get the prescription, and we always put the request in at least a week before I'm due to run out of pills. So even if there is some kind of holdup, I still have enough meloxicine to keep me going. On the day before Christmas Eve, Thursday, I had 6 pills left of my last prescription, and another full bottle that Mom had picked up the week before. So I had more than enough pills to get me through Christmas and into the new year, and there shouldn't have been anything to worry about. And there wasn't, until I opened the new bottle. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was in my bathroom taking my third pill of the day. While I was in there, I thought I might as well transfer the last 6 tablets into the new bottle. So I took it off the shelf, opened it up, and was just about to empty the old pill bottle into it when something caught my eye. The pills in the new bottle, they didn't look right. I looked closer, peering into the bottle. The pills in there were small and yellow, like meloxicine, but they weren't quite the same. They were just a bit too small, a bit too yellow, unless maybe the pills had been redesigned. Maybe the company that makes meloxicine had decided it was time to give them a new look. It was possible, wasn't it? It didn't make much sense to me. What's the point of redesigning a pill? But it wasn't out of the question. I looked at the label on the bottle. I couldn't make out the writing at first because my hand was shaking so much, as was the rest of me. And the only way I could read the label was by putting the bottle down on the counter beside the sink and reading, and leaning in close to it. The wording on the label was exactly the same as it always is. 168 meloxicine, 50 milligram tabs. Take one 6 times a day. I picked up the bottle again and shakily tipped out a couple of pills onto the counter. Now that they were out of the brown glass bottle, it was even more obvious how different they were. The yellow was totally wrong, and although they were only a bit smaller than they should be, their overall shape was nothing like my usual pills. My usual pills are kind of saucier shaped. These were much flatter, like little discs. I was still clinging to the possibility that there was nothing to worry about, that these pills were just the same old meloxicine with a brand new look. But even as I leaned down over the counter for a really close look at the pills that I'd tipped out, I knew I was just clutching at straws. I could feel the truth inside me, and it didn't feel good. And when I read the brand name printed on the new tablets, my gut feeling was confirmed. Mectizone, it said. Not meloxicine. Mectizone. I straightened up and took a few steady breaths, trying unsuccessfully to control my racing heart. Then I went over to my desk, opened my laptop, and Googled Mectizone. Mectizone, Wikipedia said, is a proton pump inhibitor that decreases the amount of acid in the stomach. Mectizone is used to treat symptoms of gastroesophageal reflux disease. I didn't know what a proton pump inhibitor was, and I didn't know what gastroesophageal reflux disease was either, but it didn't make the slightest bit of difference. The only thing that mattered was that these pills, all 168 of them, weren't meloxicam. I'd been given the wrong prescription, which meant that I only had 6 fear pills left. 6. Enough to last me until this time tomorrow. I could feel it now. The beast. Deep inside me. I could feel it beginning to stir. Mom couldn't believe it when I told her what had happened. "They're supposed to check it, for God's sake," she said, glaring at the bottle in her hands. "In fact, it's supposed to be checked twice by 2 people. Look." She showed me the label, pointing out 2 little boxes in the top right-hand corner. One was marked DISP and the other CH. Both boxes had been initialed. Both sets of initials were different. "They've both initialed to say they checked it," Mom went on, getting angrier by the second. "But they can't have, otherwise they would have spotted the mistake." She shook her head again. "It's unbelievable." "It really is. I mean, what if you hadn't noticed? What if you'd started taking the wrong medication? God knows what could have happened." She was right, of course. It was unbelievable, and it was perfectly natural for her to be angry. But one of the things about fear that makes it so powerful is that it totally overwhelms everything else. Other feelings, other emotions. And although I was angry too, my fear was 100 times stronger. The fear of running out of pills. The fear of fear itself. The fear of the beast. So all I cared about then, as Mom carried on ranting and cursing, the only thing I was thinking about was getting more meloxicam. I had 6 pills left. It was Christmas Eve tomorrow. After that, the pharmacy would be closed for 2 days. If I didn't get a new prescription by this time tomorrow, no. It was too gut-wrenching to even think about. "Mom," I said. Her eyes were still burning with anger as she turned to me. But almost immediately she recognized the look on my face. The look of fear. And she knew at once what I needed her to do. "I'll call the pharmacy right now," she said. "We'll get this figured out, okay?" "Right," she said after she'd called the pharmacy. "I've spoken to the senior pharmacist, and everything's all right." She was very apologetic about the mistake, and they're going to give us a new prescription for meloxicam. The snarl of the beast immediately began to fade. I could still hear it, though, just as I could hear the slight hesitation in my mom's voice. It sounded to me like there was a but or a however coming, and I was right. "The only thing is," Mom went on, "the pharmacy has to physically see the wrong issued bottle of pills before they can give us a new prescription, which means I'm going to have to go down there this afternoon." "Yeah, but you're going to have to go down to pick up the new prescription anyway, aren't you?" "Well, yes, but not today." I frowned. "Why not?" "They don't have any meloxicam in stock. They checked with the other local pharmacies, but none of them had any either, so they had to put in an emergency order for it." Mom paused, giving me a worried look. I could feel the blood draining from my skin, and I guess she could see it. "It's okay, love," she said, putting her arms around me. "It'll be there first thing tomorrow morning." "Yeah, but what if it's not?" I couldn't help thinking. "What if the delivery van gets stuck in the snow or breaks down or something? What if the driver gets sick or the van crashes? What if I don't get my pills tomorrow?" "Everything's going to be fine, Elliot," Mom said quietly but firm. She put her hands on my shoulders and looked at me in the eye. I know this is really hard for you, but you will get your prescription tomorrow. You have enough meloxicam for today, don't you? Yeah, and enough for tomorrow morning. I nodded. Trust me, she said. It's going to be all right, okay? I nodded again. It was all I could do. Whenever Mom was to go out, she normally asked Shirley or the doc to stay in the house with me, but that afternoon, they were both unavailable. Shirley was in York doing some last-minute Christmas shopping, and the doc was out of the country. Once a year, he does volunteer work overseas, providing medical care wherever it's needed. This time, I'll be okay on my own, Mom, I told her. Are you sure? You won't be long, will you? She shook her head. Half an hour at the most. I'll be okay. I stayed in my room while Mom drove down to the pharmacy to show them the wrong bottle of pills. I wasn't okay. I could feel the beast pacing around in its cage now. Its moment was coming. It was ready. Ready and waiting. In 24 hours, it would have me. I couldn't think about it. All I could do was lie on my bed, curled up in a ball, with LMA curled up beside me. Chapter 16. 1, 2, 3. It wasn't too bad for the rest of the night. When Mom came back from the pharmacy, she assured me again that my prescription would be there first thing in the morning. As long as I forced myself to believe her, and I forced myself to ignore the part of me that couldn't believe her, I just about managed to keep the worst of the sickening fear at bay. That's not to say that I didn't feel terrible, because I did. I was fear sick all the time. Everything hurt. My head was a mess. I was all cramped up inside. But I was managing. Just about. I was coping with it. At just past midnight, though, when I was getting ready for bed, everything suddenly caught up with me. I was in the bathroom, and I'd just taken my last fear pill of the day. Before putting the bottle back on the shelf, I carefully tipped out the remaining pills and counted them. I'd already counted them at least a dozen times, so I knew exactly how many were left, but I also knew that if I didn't count them again, I wouldn't be able to rest. So I counted them. 1, 2, 3. 3. I don't know why it happened at that particular moment rather than at any other time, but it did, and it was awful. A sudden pain gripped my belly, and a lurch of nausea welled up inside me. As I bent over the sink and threw up, the knot of pain in my stomach got worse, twisting and tightening like a belt of barbed wire. And when I heaved again, barely bringing anything up, it hurt so much that I doubled over and fell to my knees, and for the next few minutes, I just knelt there on the floor and retched, emptily and agonizingly, over and over again. The sheer strain of it sent a dizzying surge of blood to my head that made the room spin around and around, and when the retching finally stopped and I tried to stand up, irrationally thinking it made me feel better, the floor tilted beneath my feet, and I staggered backward and stumbled over, cracking my head against the wall. The next thing I knew, Mom was calling out for me from the other side of the bathroom door. Are you all right in there, Elliot? Elliot, can you hear me? Is everything all right? Yeah. My voice was a feeble croak, and the back of my head was throbbing like hell. I cleared my throat and tried again. Yeah, I'm okay, Mom. I won't be a minute, all right? An hour later or so, as I lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, I tried to picture the moment tomorrow morning when Mom would come back from the pharmacy and put the bottle of pills in my hand. I tried to imagine the feel of the glass, the rattles of the pills as I shook the bottle, like this, the familiar sharp clack as I unscrewed the plastic top. But no matter how hard I tried, willing the feelings to come to me, I just couldn't do it. As I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, I could hear the mocking laughter of the beast. Chapter 17. Kaylee. Her name was Kaylee Adams. She was 21 years old, and she had worked at the bank since leaving school. She'd met Jenner a few months ago in a local pub. Her friends had warned her to stay away from him. He was a villain, a crook. He'd done time in prison. But that was precisely what Kaylee found attractive about him. She liked bad boys. She liked flirting with danger. She liked the thrill of it all. The only thing Jenner liked about Kaylee was the fact that she worked in the bank. He didn't find her particularly good-looking or even good company, and he positively despised her pretentious attraction to him. He knew exactly what he was to her, a bored girl's plaything, and although that sickened him, he was happy to take full advantage of it. Kaylee had told them about Gordon, as she always sneeringly called him. She told Jenner that although Gordon was almost 30 years old, he still lived at home with his mother, and she still treated him like a little boy. She's always calling him at work and to ask him about stupid questions, Kaylee said, like what he wants for dinner, or did he remember to take his... Maybe it is, thought Jenner, but it's a lot better than having a mother who was so messed up on drink and drugs when you were a baby that she regularly forgot to feed you, and quite often didn't change your nappy for days, and didn't even put up a fight when social services finally took you away from her. What about your father? Jenner asked Kaylee. She shook her head. I don't know. He doesn't live with them. I know that. But I don't know anything else about him. Gordon's never even mentioned him. So it's just the two of them in the house. Yeah. Kaylee had gone on to assure Jenner that on a Christmas Eve, Gordon would be back home by 1 o'clock at the latest. The bank closes at 12, she explained. Then most of us are going to the King's Head for a few drinks. It's kind of a Christmas tradition. Does Gordon go with you? Only for about 10 minutes, thank God. He forces himself to make an appearance. He thinks it's good for staff morale, but once he's taken a microscopic sip from his half pint of lager and lime, he makes his excuse and leaves us to it. So what time is it by then? Kaylee shrugged. About 12:30. He's got to walk back to the bank to pick up his car, which is another 5 or 10 minutes. Then another 10 minutes to drive home. Yeah. So he's back by 1. Yeah. As long as he doesn't stay longer in the pub or do some Christmas shopping in town, or stop off the coast for a cup of coffee and a grilled cheese sandwich. Kaylee laughed. What? Said Jenner. Well, for a start, Gordon doesn't drink coffee. It doesn't agree with him, apparently. The only thing he drinks is tea from a flask that his mommy makes him. And as for Christmas shopping, Kaylee shook her head. He would have done it all months ago, and he never stays longer in the pub. She shrugs. He's Gordon. You can set your watch by him. Let's just hope you're right, Jenner thought, smiling at her. For your sake.